I'm excited to have Mohit Lohia as our guest today. Mohit is the Senior Vice President and Head of Digital Advertising Mission at New York Times. He's a seasoned product leader with more than 10 years in digital advertising and has tons of experience in building CX at scale and infrastructure. Mohit is known for his deep understanding of the digital advertising industry, his ability to build and scale products, and his commitment to customer excellence. Please join me in welcoming Mohit Lohia to the show. Mohit, welcome to Product Bar Raisers. It's great to have you on the show today.
Thanks a lot, Asim. I'm super excited to be on the show.
You have been in advertising for maybe a decade or more in Amazon and now in Times. Can you tell us a bit about your journey?
My journey in advertising started with Johnson & Johnson Consumer, where I was a brand manager. On the other end of the advertising spectrum, because I was the guy who was spending the advertising dollars. I joined Amazon India very early in around 2014. I was given the responsibility to kickstart the Amazon India advertising business. So that is where the journey in digital advertising started. After building the advertising business there, I came to Valley. Luckily for me, I joined a company which Amazon had acquired. And the idea was to innovate and build new products. So this was not into advertising. So it was like, for me, it was a break from advertising. I worked on Alexa for a couple of years and then somewhere came back into advertising, leading advertising identity graph. And then I came back and started working on sponsored products. And that was a journey which basically then leads me into Times, because one of the questions is like, you've had the opportunity to work across different facets of advertising. What does the whole picture look like? That is where my journey led me to leading the advertising mission at Times, where I lead all aspects of digital advertising.
That was quite an interesting journey. And now that you are at Times, which is one of the most popular or the leading media company, what's the output that you drive? And then what are all the different things as a product management leader that you have to take care of there?
Times is a very interesting construct. We have each objective which is important for the company organized into missions. So I lead the digital advertising mission, which means that I'm responsible for driving the product roadmap on what happens from a digital advertising perspective, like making sure that our current business is running efficiently, making sure that we are thinking about the future and bringing growth drivers into the business there, making sure that we are constantly innovating for our advertisers so that they are able to get more and more out of every dollar that they spend on Times, and balancing the customer experience or the user experience, reader experience as they come onto their site. Because New York Times is a premium destination. You need to drive advertising revenue, but how do you drive advertising revenue without hurting customer experience, without cluttering the site, without in any way interrupting the user journey on a wide variety of our products?
So I think when you're saying customers right now, you're talking about people who come to one of these Times properties to consume content. The other side of this coin is the advertisers who are placing ads on Times to reach to these customers. Do you focus on both of these customers?
Both. I think the focus needs to be both, because we make our money from advertising, but the reason why they're coming is because there's a high quality user experience. So when we think about customers, it's the duality that makes advertising very interesting, because you have to balance. You cannot optimize purely for one or the other. You have to make sure that at what point are you building that balance of striking the right part around monetization and user experience.
Let's go back towards the beginning. I think you were part of the team which built the ad business from scratch in Amazon India. What is it to build this kind of a business from scratch?
When you were building a business for Amazon India, and Amazon worldwide had an ads business, so it wasn't like you had to invent everything. It was not so much of an invention problem. It was a time compression problem. What you can easily do in 3 years, how do you achieve that in between 3 to 6 month window? That becomes a part where, as a product manager, you need to understand the market very sharply. And then as you're thinking about what exists in the larger, the mothership, what kind of products I need to bring, what kind of products I need to launch, you need to be very, very sure on what features, what functionality that you're trying to bring in. So you're trying to trim everything down with a very sharp understanding of the market around what's going to work. You're just trying to say, what can I do in 3 to 6 months? A lot of people think a time compression problem is just like do more work, squeeze everything in. It's not that. There's a lot of innovation aspect to it as well. Like when I was building the advertising business, I didn't have an engineering team with me. Now, if I were to go and hire an engineering team, it would take me 3 to 6 months just to get the team started. Instead of building my own engineering team, my first port of call was like asking Amazon China team to build the product for India. So Amazon India product was actually built by Amazon China team.
Okay.
And the reason we
Interesting.
could do that was because China ad business was on a decline and they were trying to figure out like how to use the engineering resources. And we found this as a very immediate and a quick use of resources. So that is one around when you're solving time compression problem, you have to seek a lot of help and you have to be like very creative around how you get help and how you generate help. Second is like even when you're thinking about product, you have to be like very scrapey and very innovative. For instance, auto charging of credit card was a huge problem in India way back in 2014-15. And most self-service advertising business depend on auto charging credit cards. So we didn't have an option of auto charging credit cards, and anybody whom we spoke to would say that it will take us 12 months to 24 months to build a solution out for you. And you didn't have that time with you because you're working on a time compression problem. So what you did is you innovated an alternative where you asked your advertiser to like buy a gift card and then you would auto debit their gift cards. When you're thinking about time compression problem, like you have to innovate at multiple level. You have to innovate on resources. You have to innovate around the customer journey. You need to work backwards from the customer, work backwards from the need, and say like, what's the bare minimum product that I can use to get started. We launched our product like fairly quickly, and then we realized like this self-service product was not flying in India because like the Indian advertisers back in the day wanted some kind of a hand holding.
How did you handhold the customers? What did you have to do for that?
When you're building a self-service product, you cannot go into like a full account managed or a full white glove service. So what we had to do basically there is we had to create like a sharp program. Biggest reason somebody will drop from the program is if they're not seeing return on investment. Efficiency of advertising is one key criteria why somebody would drop. Second thing, what we identify why people would drop is they just don't understand like how to set up things, like how to get started. Keeping those two things as like the big dropout levers, what we said is like first 1 month of the spending, let's monitor each advertiser's program very closely so that if their revenue is dropping or if their advertising is not effective, we can intervene with optimization immediately. So what that allowed us to do is make sure that a high percentage of advertisers we are able to show results in the first 1 month. Second thing, what we did is we did a program where the first campaign would be set up by us. We would run that for like 15 days, and for the next 15 days, you would ask the advertiser to come in and set the program up. We would monitor the program to make sure that all the settings, what they need to do, optimize, they're doing it right. That gave the advertiser confidence that they could do it on their own and they didn't need us.
There's a lot of different kind of things that you mentioned that product management has to do, and it is such a broad space. What are the different roles that product managers have in advertising?
Fundamentally, there are three broad buckets of role for product manager. One is the role of product manager focusing on demand, which is like how do I get more advertisers into my system? What does it take for my product to be sold to advertisers? What will attract advertisers? What will retain advertisers? So it's a very demand focused one. And if you're working with a larger organization on advertising, you'd be thinking about agency interactions, you'd be thinking about larger advertiser interactions, smaller advertiser interactions, SMBs, self-service. From a skill set perspective, it requires somebody who can connect well with the customer, somebody who can understand the industry, somebody who can understand the market trends pretty well. The other area is supply side. There, what you're doing is you're trying to build ad experience onto the surface through which you intend to make money off or where you're getting traffic on. There you need to basically balance out the needs of the customer or the user of your product along with the need of advertisers. The biggest skill at that point is you need to have very deep customer understanding. So if you're building a search advertising product, you need to understand search very intricately. You need to be very good around your ability to run experiments, analyze experiments. These experiments tend to be very expensive. So if you're working on a company size of Amazon, these experiments are like hundreds of millions dollar worth of experiment if you get it wrong. Like there could be multiple millions dollars of impact if you just change the font size of how you communicate the
Wow.
message. That's largely because of the scale of this business. So attention to details becomes extremely important for this product manager. And anybody who's working on supply, especially on a consumer product, will run into a lot of friction with teams who are trying to optimize engagement metrics. So somebody needs to be like very skillful in negotiating, very skillful in communicating, and very skillful in influencing without authority. Because if you want to build an ad into a search experience, you have to convince the search PM that the ad experience that you're building is good enough to be sitting on the search page, and that's generally never an easy task. And the third one, and this role is evolving the fastest, is around ads infrastructure. You need a system that matches both supply and demand in the most natural way possible or the most efficient way possible, and that is where a lot of ad infrastructure and core advertising concept comes in. Think of like targeting, creating the right segments, being able to target the right audience, being able to measure or attribute the performance of advertising, being able to make sure that no advertiser ads is coming into any uh, environments which an advertiser would not want to be present, or frequency capping, like so that a user doesn't see the same ad more than X number of times. Earlier, this used to be also an area where a very deep technical expertise was required because you had to understand systems, you had to understand engineering. But over the period, as more and more data science is coming into the picture, as more and more uh, application of data, application of newer concepts, and much more power around processing data is coming in. The infrastructure roles are tending towards more around PMs who are leaning very high on concepts around artificial intelligence or concepts around machine learning, concepts around data science.
You have had a lot of experience in the ad infrastructure at scale. As a product manager, what are the key skills that you require there?
You need to understand the technology and your tech stack extremely deeply. Like if you miss out on that, then you cannot succeed as an infrastructure PM. But then the question is like this: the engineering manager will always know better than the PM. So what value is the PM adding? The differentiating value of the PM is the PM should have an understanding around where the company is moving, where the different products of the company are moving, and what implications will it have on the infrastructure which this PM is responsible for.
Got it.
They're not thinking about the use case that one of the partner teams or one of the dependency teams have brought in. They're thinking about how this use case is going to evolve in the future. So you need to play that role of a visionary, somebody who
Right.
understands where the company is going, and you need to be able to translate that back into a requirement which can be built into different forms of infrastructure.
Is there an example you can give of any such decision that you drove?
I was running identity graph, which is like the most granular unit where you know a user. So that was the best place to store the information whether user is choosing to opt in or opt out. GDPR was already live and CCPA was just coming in as a law around 2020. Most companies or most teams were trying to say, are we compliant? And that's perfect. That's exactly what you do as a PM. But I think the part around having a vision or looking into the future is: are you building your infrastructure to respect GDPR or CCPA, or are you building your infrastructure to support the concepts that are in the law? Now, if as an infrastructure PM, you're able to distill that out and say that we will be compliant, but at the end of the day, what we need to build is three features. Feature one, every data that is coming in, we should be able to take user consent. Feature two, we should be able to provide the user all data we have on their behalf. And feature three is we should be able to delete a user data on the request. Now, if you build it in this manner, then what happens is Tomorrow Virginia privacy law comes in, you're not worried, right? Because all what you're doing is you build the basic ones, some rules change, some implementation detail change, but you are not churning your infrastructure again and again.
There are a few other things that I've heard about, changes to the iOS identifier. I think they stopped app tracking or they put some restriction there. Then there's this other thing that I'd heard about cookie deprecation, which has been going on for a few years, and I think it's still in process. I believe these are some very fundamental changes to the way advertisers maybe identify or target potential customers. So, how is the product or the advertising product or offering changing because of all of this?
This is what everybody in advertising is trying to figure out. When all these identifiers exist, you could connect a user navigating all over the internet with a single identifier. Uh, Now, in the absence of this, what has happened is you're not able to link a user who is visiting New York Times to a user who is on Amazon or on Facebook. It inhibits the ability of anybody who's running an ad tech system to weave the whole journey on the internet for the user. So fundamentally what's happening is the data is getting fragmented. So whatever behavior of the user is happening on say New York Times is sitting on New York Times. Whatever behavior of the user is on Target is sitting on Target. Each of the properties own the data and have a big storehouse of data. This data is not commodity. Now, if you're a consumer property owner, you have to figure out the way in which you can use this gold mine of data much more efficiently. So a lot of product management roles earlier on advertising used to focus a lot around how do I build a new ad experience? How do I make more money with the traffic that's coming into my site? Now a lot of this thing is happening around how can I use this data much more efficiently? You see a big proliferation of something called retail media networks, which is like Best Buy is building their own ad network. Target is building its own ad networks. If you see on the publisher side, a lot of publishers are thinking about how do we use this data to create first party segments or first party targeting. How do we enable that? And Times was like one of the very early proponents of building first party targeting in other areas. People are thinking about how to use their data efficiently to drive business, which was not like a big question that was being asked like 5 or 10 years back, where especially in smaller businesses, the moment you want to use your data efficiently, like as a PM, you're thinking about data science constructs. You're thinking about how can I use this data to power much better machine thinking on this, and that basically spawns the whole drive for PMs who are comfortable with artificial intelligence, PMs who are comfortable with machine learning, PMs who are comfortable with data sciences. Now each small company needs to figure this out on their own. So that's opening up opportunities for PM. That is opening up newer set of companies which are coming to solve this problem for a lot of publishers as vendors, opening up a lot of opportunities for SaaS companies.
How do you see these AI and generative AI impacting advertising, and how would it change the work or the roles that are there in the industry?
Advertising and advertising at scale has always been like first mover around using a lot of this AI and ML technologies. Like this, there is one very fundamental thing is how will the presence of this very powerful tools across the industry change advertiser expectation. Whenever you are making a guess on data at scale, you have a particular error rate with which you are operating. Now, there is a particular tolerance on the error rate today. Now, with this large language models and newer capability, the tolerance rate of errors will go down. Like people would expect these models to be much more accurate. The other big area is around creatives, right? And this I think is very fascinating, especially the generative AI part of it. Is today, if you think about a creative optimization problem, it is a problem where we say you have n number of ads, and based on where you are serving, which ad do you think will perform the best, right? So you have a selection problem today to select the best ad from n number of ads. Now with generative AI, you can just throw the selection problem out of the window, and you can say that based on this environment, what ad do you want to create? And this is the messaging constraint on which you need to create an ad. So what was earlier an optimization problem, you can convert it now into a creation on the fly problem.
I think you put it very interestingly that instead of an optimization, it will become a creation problem, and creating at scale in real time. Does it bring in more product management complexities?
Generative AI does not help you identify the problem. It helps you reach to the solution in a much quicker manner. If at all, the way I think about from a PM perspective, generative AI will make the role of PM much more important, because I think generative AI is coming at a point where it's accelerating your path to the solution. But it problem identification, problem framing, problem simplification, I think those parts is like where generative AI cannot help you a lot.
So you also mentioned that advertising already uses a lot of AI and ML. What is some of the work today that requires AI and ML and advertising?
At the end of the day, advertising is trying to solve a matching problem. If you think from a very data science perspective, it's like matching the right consumer with the right message at the right time. That's the problem that you're trying to solve. So when you're trying to solve that problem with billions of users at a scale, you're able to solve that much more efficiently with machines, with artificial intelligence. So you already use a lot in terms of all these areas of matching, understanding, and optimizing, right? So these are all the roles, right? Like, you know, ads optimization, media planning, targeting, measurement, frequency control, brand safety, all these aspects used like machine learning in a very, very big and massive way already.
Finally, before we wrap up, do you have any tips or tricks or advice for product managers in advertising?
My biggest advice is around being very careful around the kind of projects you are spending your time with. So I have this interesting theory that, especially in big companies, there are three types of projects that product managers get assigned to or get to work on. One is a project which I call a treadmill project, in which you will work very hard, you will sweat it out, but you will move nowhere because that's how the project is set up. So you will not get executive buy-in, you will not get the support from the right partners, and the project will not move. The second is what I called a circular, a circular project or a circular run, in which what happens is things will move, you will see scene changing around you, but over a period of time, what you will find is you are back into the same position where you started. So this is the circular project. And third one is the run project, where you move ahead and you make progress. Now, the key trick here is try to minimize as much of circular runs and treadmill projects as you can, and focus more on projects where you are like actually running and things are moving, and that will require you, like, you know, to have very good relationship and network, so that you are able to sense that and, you know, build your own spidey sense around which projects are, like, you know, into falls into which bucket.
That was an excellent way of describing the projects. I mean, having spent 20 years in product management, I can completely relate to those three kind of projects. With that, we are coming to an end of our discussion. I think there's a lot in this discussion that product managers can learn from, not just about advertising, but in product management career in general. So thank you so much for giving us your time, and thank you so much for coming in today to talk to us.
Thanks a lot, Asim. Always pleasure talking to you.
I hope you enjoyed today's video and got some valuable insight. To continue getting these insights on product management, subscribe below to Product Advisors, and don't forget to like this video.